Hello everyone. The Super Meteor 650 has a very stiff rear shock setup. I follow Sagar Sheldakar and saw the video he made for fixing the same issue without any additional investment on a Bear 650. And from what I've read on the internet, the Bear and the Super Meteor use the same rear suspension unit. Please do check out this video. I've linked it in the description. The Super Meteor 650 you see here is friends and it is with me. We've already seen a video on the same bike I did when I rode to Penugonda to send off a friend of mine as a farewell. That was a farewell ride. We'll try this in three parts, wherein I'll use the slot one, which is the lowest setting on the rear shock absorbers. Then I'll ride around and see how the springs feel. I'll be taking videos of that. I'll also do it in the middle part, which is the third slot, and then I'll again do it on the fifth slot, which is the highest setting. So that's the maximum preload that you can go up to. I do not know the technical specifications. I do not know the spring rate. No, that 7 minutes plus video that Sagar did, he was so kind to find this and share the knowledge with us. That uh, you know, is very useful, and I've decided to give it a try without getting into the physics and the mathematics of how suspensions work. Let's see what we find out. I'm riding around in the apartment parking lot. We've got speed breakers and a couple of grills, which are for the water channels. And then we'll move on to a public road wherein we have speed breakers, two or three of them. Uh, that's nearby my house, and you are able to see the suspension in action. Uh, the the suspension is not very reactive, right? It's quite jittery at the lowest setting, which is a zero preload. Probably because it is the lowest setting, I'm calling it zero preload. And then we will move on to going out to a public road and going over the normal speed humps or speed breakers that we have on our roads and see how it behaves. I'll keep the camera focused on the suspension. You'll also see the suspension in action when the bike stops and when I again accelerate. So it clearly shows how much range of action the suspension has got, or suspension travel, to use the actual accurate term. If we are able to hit the first speed breaker, I'm doing about 20 here. Doing 20 on a speed breaker, a small speed breaker on this bike is very uncomfortable as of now. You'll have to really slow down. So first gear it is. You can't gliding over a speed breaker on a cruiser is not possible, but still it's very slow for 2025. The speed that you have to come down to manage to cross a speed breaker. Right. Now let's go back and try the middle part, which is the number 3 slot in the preload setting. Let's see how the suspension behaves.
Well, the stock setting is at the lowest here, and we'll now try and increase the preload. So we're going to do this in two stages. We'll bump up the preload to the third position, and then we'll take a test ride over the same set of humps that you saw earlier, speed breakers that you saw earlier. So let's see if we can find any differences. It's really simple. They have a slot here, the shock absorbers. By virtue of the saddle stays here, the clearance is limited. I'm going to use a 5 mm Allen key. It fits into this. I think a 6 mm will also fit, but I'm just using a 5 mm. Right, I just need leverage to move this to 2 and 3. So I'm going to put it at the second step of preload. And now we'll put it to the third. I'll do the same for the other shock absorber. Okay, now that we have set the rear shock absorber to the third preload position, let's go ahead and check the same set of speed breakers. First in my apartment basement parking, then second on the speed breakers. With the rear preload set to the mid spot, I should say that the front has become a bit more responsive when going over speed breakers. It's not hopping over them, or there is no jump. ऐसे कुदाने वाली फीलिंग नहीं आ रही है. It's not like thrashing me around. I am doing, I would say, anywhere between 15 and 20 kilometers per hour. Now let's go on to the normal speed breaker. We are taking the same path as before. That was much smoother compared to when we were at their lowest. Let's move from the third step to the fifth step. I'm quite happy with the results of what we got from the third step in the preload. The rear two shock absorbers are now set to the topmost available setting, which is at 5. We're riding over the same set of speed breakers that we did, with the shock absorber initially at 1, and then the shock absorber at 3, and then now at 5. I was quite happy with the results of what I saw at step number 3. However, I'm 100 kilos and I need hope I come down soon. I'm 100 kilos, so I thought if I set it around 5, it might have a difference. It really has a difference when, if you noticed, I'll zoom in on the portion. When I came over the part where the ramp of our apartment meets the basement, there is a slight, jerk that I felt in the number 1 setting and in the number 3 setting. Now I'm going, and there is a pliance in the suspension. I'm not saying it's perfect because it's a heavy bike and suspension is what it is, but now I'm able to take the speed breakers at comfortably around 20. Earlier, the same speed breaker needed me to slow down to around 10 or 12 and or 15 in the number 3 setting and around 10 or 12 in the number 1 setting. We are going again the same route. We are going back, same set of speed breakers. I tried it at 30 and it sort of threw me over off my seat. So I'm not going to repeat that. But 20 is doable, and I think 20 lets you stay in second gear because this has got a lot of torque. Just to be sure, let's do one more round over the speed breakers in the apartment parking and come to a conclusion. So the bike has no other modifications apart from the factory, I mean the Royal Enfield accessories, crash guard and its saddle stay and the touring state. I do not know how much it has contributed to the weight of the bike, but at the topmost setting for a 100 kilo frame, I find the rear shock absorbers are far more acceptable than they are at the stock, or the, how do I put it, at the lowest point in the preload. So yeah, I am going to keep them at 5. They are a little bit more responsive.
It is a comparison of the preload 1, preload 3, and preload 5 changes that we did. You can review this to see if you can spot the reactiveness that I felt from the suspension. All the best if you're trying this on your motorcycle. Be safe, keep riding. See you in the next video.